You're welcome to join Doggo Cult. What's something that's not a cult, but feels like a cult? AA. I'm an AA. I like AA. It saved my life. But it is cultish a lot of the time. Also in AA, also love AA, also agree. AA is great. If you let it become your new addiction, it will be pretty cult-like. Some people forget we got sober, so we could function in normal society. Yup, can't just hang out in meetings all day and night. It's a bridge back to life. Get off the bridge and get to living. But same here, it saved my life and I love it. The Herbalife organization. They were charged with being a pyramid scheme, but they still operate in a similar way. There are several people I grew up with who became hooked on it, and they definitely act like they're in a cult. My niece was involved in that shit. She was constantly posting shit memes about how Herbalife wasn't a cult. If you have to constantly say you're not in a cult, that's a bad sign. Some workplaces. The ones that push the we're all family here attitude especially. Aka you won't be promoted. LMAO exactly. You're part of our family and family helps each other out with as little compensation as possible. Literally saw a job posting yesterday that said, if monetary compensation is your primary reason for applying, don't bother. We're a family here. That was one of the most demeaning things I've ever read. If you want to get paid for your employment, look elsewhere. Yeah, okay. I definitely will. Marching band. If you know, you know. One thing that still blows my mind to this day is that people pay thousands of dollars to be in drum corps bands. So many questions when I first learned about it. Oh, so it's like being in an orchestra where it's your job to play and be the best in the world? Nope, you pay them actually. Oh well, at least you'll be basically famous or at least really well known for playing that instrument? Nope, the only people who even know the name of your corps or even what drum and bugle corps is in general are other corps members, their family, or high school marching band kids and their teachers. MLMs, but especially Mary Kay. I went to a convention once as the guest of a consultant because she was trying to get me to join. It was very Stepford. Also, she didn't tell me you were expected to dress up, so I showed up in jeans and a hoodie. Haha. I had the exact same experience. Showed up looking normal and realized these were not my kind of people. I suspect that is part of the plan. Get people to arrive underdressed so that they feel like they are in the presence of success. CrossFit. A friend of mine does CrossFit, and I made the mistake of saying I'm glad you found something that works for you. Got a tirade of why it works for everyone. CrossFit is the anti-fight club. The first rule of CrossFit is you must always talk about CrossFit. Nutriboom. Boom boom. Please sign here that you've seen Debbie Stobbelman and find her to be happy, healthy, and alive. Working for a non-profit. They tend to refer to employees as a family working for a cause, which wouldn't be culty on its own, but they definitely use it to manipulate employees, to work themselves half to death and set a culture where boundaries are thought of as not being invested in the mission. They also use your passion for the mission to justify working you harder / paying you less. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love my job and what I get to do, but I'm old enough to see what's been done to me over the years. The rotating door of young employees who are worked to burn out and replaced though, I feel bad for. It's a hard lesson to learn. Got told we weren't paid a lot because we were doing something we were passionate about. I was one of those that had no boundaries and burned out. Getting my masters to become a NP manager and help stop the burnout culture madness. Some fandoms, especially K-pop fandoms. My Little Pony 2. I watched that show for a couple seasons back in the day after wondering why several of my friends were hyping it up, including one that really surprised me by liking the show. Friendship is Magic. Pretty good show, quite funny. Took a peek or 2 or 3 into the fandom, though, and, Jesus Christ. It was very well. No wonder people who watch the show have a bad reputation. Got 'em. The Order of the Arrow and the Boy Scouts. Technically an approved organization, but it's cultish as hell. It's funny because they make you do this big induction camp out, and the day after I got back from mine, my English teacher gave a lecture on how to identify a cult, and it hit a lot of red flags. Call me Kevin's subscribers, it's not a cult, I promise. Yes, definitely not the cult of Jimpicans. Mega churches. The ones that air on TV with a crowd that rivals sports teams, owns sports arenas, and has its pastors fly in private jets. There, I said it. The televangelists. This doesn't work here. The post said, that aren't actual cults. High school clubs, where you spend a lot of time together. Marching band and theater are the ones that come to mind for me. Yeah, I studied theater for 2 years in college, and it got to the point where there was definitely a cult-like atmosphere. When I decided to leave and study engineering instead, there was even a girl who sat me down and told me that God gave me the gift of acting and that, by choosing to ignore that gift I was ignoring God. Yeah, shit was weird. I'm a lot happier in engineering. Some families. If you're inside the family, you are accepted no matter what, and you don't question anything. If you're outside the family, you are treated politely, but don't really matter much, unless you act as part of the family. If you were part of the family, but betray them, you are excommunicated, and they spread lies about you. Reddit sometimes. Curly girl method groups. Flatiron, jail. Hair dye, jail. Sulfates, you right to jail. Silicones, right to jail, right away. No deep conditioning, believe it or not, jail. We have the best hair in the world because of jail. Forced school songs that talk about being a part of the school forever. School spirit. I can understand it for university, but not for high school or below, which I didn't have a choice in attending. I went there because it was the school I ended up being sent to. Ergo I should be proud of it? I don't get it. I mean, it's the same thing of being born somewhere and being proud of it. I love my city of Milwaukee, but it's not like I had much of a choice. I just went through at least 24 top replies and shocked Burning Man isn't listed. Y'all, burners are ducking weird. Source. I was one/am one who has critical thoughts about how things work yet have found ideas are only cool if you're popular. This is fascinating. I've wanted to go for a long time for the music and art, but could not stand the vibe people got about it who went. I remember friends going and suddenly totally changing their friend groups. And a friend saying he's cool, he's a burner. It's really sad to me though. I'm a lover of less commercial electronic music and would love to see the amazing art and cars, but I feel like I'd find the burners the most exhausting aspect. Only really because they preach being yourself, and yet they all kind of look/act the same. Sororities. There's a really good episode of King of the Hill, where the central plot involves the characters being unable to distinguish between a sorority and a cult, and getting into trouble. Yup. Also fraternities. Love my fraternity, but we can be a little culty sometimes. Peloton. Seriously. My dad hasn't stopped talking about his since getting it a year ago and went so far as to buy me one for Christmas this year, which is super generous and my fat ass will totally benefit, but feels like I'm being indoctrinated into something. The instructors are really intense and say culty things. I think the idea is to physically torture you to the point that you don't notice you're being programmed to spread Peloton gospel to anyone who will listen. I've been so bored that joining a cult where I get hotter sounds okay though. Elon Musk's fan followers. Funny thing is he clearly had a social media campaign running to change his image for the better. At first everyone pretty much knew he was part wacko. Then he gets on the Junior podcast, smokes weed. Then all of a sudden he is this grand meme lord who browses Reddit and thus is great. Texas A&M University. In high school I made a presentation on the traditions at A&M. I covered as many traditions as I could find. My mom went there. My uncles went there. My granddad went there. So early on in life I knew I was going to go there. Right after I finished someone said that sounds like a cult. Anasanas. What tipped you off? The Latin, the constant themes of death and impermanence, or the low chanting? Flat Earth Society. Their inability to understand that the earth is not flat baffles me to oblivion. IKR, it's absurd people still think the earth is flat. Eating disorders and any pro-eating disorder sites. Those who have an eating disorder often view their disorder as their best friend, giving them names like Anna and Maya. And then there are those sites to make it worse. They treat eating disorders like they are sacred and often post rules in a cultish way. One site I used to visit in my dark days even had the 10 commandments of Anna now. If that doesn't sound cultish IDK, what does? Don't even make me start about the weightless coaches on there. Politics. Lately. The hardcore deaf community. I'm talking the kind who insist that being deaf isn't a disability, intentionally seclude themselves from the hearing world, and protest against cochlear implants. A deaf guy checking in. I agree. I grew up in the hearing culture, but have had my share in the deaf community, and there are some groups that I have great distaste for due to this belief.